there's a lot of you who are Donald Trump supporters. A lot of you are Ron DeSantis supporters, and a few of you are Nikki Haley supporters. But by and large, I think that we are all conservative, and I'm not going to castigate anyone for being a supporter of Nikki Haley. I'm not going to castigate or criticize anyone for being a supporter of Ron DeSantis or Donald Trump. But here's the thing that I find fascinating. Why is it that if you're a member of the left, you feel like you have the moral authority to condemn or criticize Donald Trump supporters? This is something that happened to Kelsey Grammer. Now, if you know anything about the Cheers star, the Frasier star, he is a Donald Trump supporter. And so he's out there giving interviews on his new version of Frasier. And he was on the BBC, and he was giving an interview, and the interviewer asked him if he was still a Donald Trump supporter. This is how it sounded.
At least you were a Trump supporter. I'm fascinated to know if you still are.
I am, and I'll let that be the end of it.
So here's what happened after that, and this is where the news headlines went, is they cut the interview short. They did. So the BBC actually cut the interview short, and it was after that question that they did cut the interview short. This is, as the story goes, from CNN. Kelsey Grammer, BBC interview reportedly cut short as talk turned to his support of Donald Trump. Justin Webb, one of the hosts of the Today program on BBC Radio 4, recalled that Grammer had mentioned that he was a supporter of Donald Trump. Turning to politics, Webb asked Grammer if he was still a supporter. And, of course, you just heard the audio. Grammer said yes. After the segment ended, Webb went on to discuss Grammer's comment, saying, I have to say, actually, Kelsey Grammer himself was perfectly happy to go on talking about his support of Donald Trump. The Paramount PR people, less happy that he talked about it at some length. They said they decided that we'd had plenty of time for our interview, but I should stress that he was absolutely perfectly happy to talk about why he supports Donald Trump and still does in the coming election. Now, I looked for the audio. I can't find that part of the audio, so I'm not entirely certain the cadence of this interviewer. But it's just the way that the comment reads. He was perfectly happy to talk about why he supports Donald Trump and still does in the coming election. And it almost sounds like he's criticizing Kelsey Grammer. And it's like, are these folks on the left, are they really still? I realize that you've got the absolute lunatics on the left, which really seems to be a lot of these folks lately. But I don't know about you. But as a guy who supports Donald Trump, I don't feel shamed, even if these jackholes on the left want to try to shame me or you or anyone who, air quoting here, continues to support Donald Trump. Have you seen what's going on in the country lately? I refuse to be shamed. Hell, I feel vindicated because of what Joe Biden has done to the country over the last 3 years. I'm going to get into a lot of this coming up after the news at 7. But I want you to think about this, because you do have these people, whether it is on CNN, whether it is on BBC, whether it's on The View, wherever the shaming comes from, there is still a lot of these folks on the left that do try to shame Donald Trump supporters. And Donald Trump supporters collectively, you ought to just shame the people on the left for supporting Joe Biden, because good Lord, look what's happened over the last 3 years. I mean, I've talked about wanting to go up to, I know the houses. I walk around my neighborhood all the time, and I know exactly which houses are the ones that had Biden-Harris campaign posters right there and campaign signs right there on the front lawn. I want to knock on their door and say, are you happy now? There's no shaming that Donald Trump supporters deserve. The shaming needs to go to the other side. Now, I would never do that, but I know the houses. on my little route, through my neighborhood, and I know the homes around my, in my neighborhood, generally speaking, that had the Biden-Harris, signs. And I've talked about wanting to find my own Biden-Harris signs and put those signs right back up into the front lawns of those homes that supported Joe Biden as a reminder that they are the ones that did this to our country. Whether we're talking about the economy, illegal immigration, fentanyl, the open borders, etc. So I don't know about you, but anybody who tries to shame you for being a supporter of anyone, whether it is on the right, anyone on the right, whether it is Donald Trump or Nikki Haley or Ron DeSantis, don't accept it. We should hold our heads high because we know what was going on during Donald Trump's first 4 years, and we sure as heck know what's going on right now with Joe Biden. And we, as conservatives, have absolutely nothing to be ashamed of. The other side, they've got a lot to be ashamed of, and we'll see what happens in 2024.